All right, so when a customer comes in the front door, whether you've already talked to them on the phone, whether you've never met them, whether they're a referral, feedback, whatever it is, there are 7 things that you have to answer for. Okay? The first thing that you have to answer for a prospect is what, Marcia? Remember?
My Oak Creek.
Why manufactured home?
My
Very close.
manufactured
Okay? All right, so what do I mean by that? You know, we have the customers come in here, and particularly the high-end buyer. Now, it's one thing for a person to come in and know that they have to have a single wide and they have no options. But it's another thing for somebody to come in who can buy whatever they want to buy from whoever they want to buy. Okay? And that's the customer, this discriminate custom home buyer. You have to be sure to answer for them why a manufactured home. Why would they buy a manufactured home over a custom built home? So, why manufactured home? What are some reasons why somebody might buy a manufactured home?
Well, they can be in it quicker than a site build.
So time,
It's more affordable. With Oak Creek, we have a 7-year warranty, which is
okay. If we're talking about just the bird's eye view of manufactured homes across the board, manufactured or modular,
what about mobility if they want to move?
okay. That's a good point.
They could possibly have their home.
Okay. With regards to affordability, let me just ask, let's start at the top. Time frame. What are some of the advantages on time frame?
From what I understand, from the time a home is ordered to the time it is set up and occupied, it's about a month. Is that correct?
It can be. It can be longer.
Okay.
Okay, but we're talking about 1 week to a maximum of about 90 days. They're custom building and they've got a lot of construction at the site, that kind of stuff. Okay, 1 week to about 90 days. What is that comparison to? That's one interesting fact, but what does it compare to?
6 months, a year.
6 months to a year?
Depends on the builder's schedule.
Why would that fact be significant besides the fact that it's quicker?
Renters, there's a lot of renters who, their lease is going to be up, they're sick of renting, they refuse to rent again, but they want to get into their own place fairly quickly.
If we were going to talk about something other than the fact that I can be in it in a week if it's already set up, or if it's a stock model and it's a cash single wide, or the fact that I could custom build it from scratch starting right now, have it delivered to the property and ready to live in within 90 days for sure, in many cases half of that, 45.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that fact alone, what's one of the glaring issues with it taking that long? I'm going to tell you what it is. You've got a crew on the ground for 6 months to a year that you're paying for.
Money.
It's money. When we talk about building a home on site, does anybody have any idea how much of the cost of that home is labor?
Significant portion.
They did a census. The average cost of labor to build a home is 40% of the cost of that home. 40%.
Of our homes?
No.
Oh,
Of
just a
custom
home.
building a home in the field. And the more custom it is, the higher that is. You get somebody who's involved in cornice and all this type of finish work and stuff, and that can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. However, that's not what we're up against. Okay? An average home built in the site, 40% is labor. Anybody have any idea what ours is?
Probably
10%.
15.
10 or below. 10%. So it's really important that people know one of the significant motivators or drivers of affordability of manufactured homes is not material. It's not that we use a lesser grade of lumber, or that we don't use sheetrock, or that we don't use the same copper wire, the same windows, the same lighting, the same plumbing, the same wooden cabinets, the same Formica countertops. It's not the material. Okay? It's primarily labor. Primarily labor. Particularly in a high-end custom home that we build. For example, the triple wide, our high-end Fort Worth product, this platinum home that we're bringing in, it's really important that a customer or a prospect understands that they're not sacrificing quality of material. They're not sacrificing amenities. They're sacrificing time and labor cost. Okay? That's one way it transfers into affordability, is the fact that it doesn't cost as much for us to build it. We don't have to have as much building. What's another way that it translates into affordability?
A lot of our products can be ordered with Energy Star.
Remember that I said this to you today, this weekend, that stories sell, facts tell, right? I'll give you an example. I was building a house in Bastrop where Valerie was being born, and I would go by the house every day. I was that guy. But I would go by the house and I would drop off barbecue, or I would drop off beer at 5:30. And I would make sure they understood that I appreciated what they were doing out there. I wasn't out there saying, "Oh, you're screwing this up," you know what I mean? So one day I drive up and my home is almost completed. And it's got white limestone, Austin stone on the front of it. It's a 2-story home. And all the rock was gone, and there was about 3 rows of home not completed at the top. I was like, what the heck happened? The guy across the street had stolen the rock and built flower beds out of it.
What?
Okay? Material loss, and it was the sheriff's brother. Okay?
Wow.
Well, the problem with that was, by the time they got more rock from the same quarry, it came back in, it was from a different part of the quarry, it had a slightly different coloration on it, and so every day for the next 2 years when I drove up to that house, the top row of bricks was a different color than the rest of the house, and it was always an eyesore to me. And I always had the guy standing out front watering his grass going, "Hey!" You know, I didn't want to talk to that guy. As far as I was concerned, he had defaced the value of my home. I talked to the builder about it. I said, "Hey man, the dude stole the material." He said, "Well, at least it was somebody from the community."
Say what?
At least it was somebody from the community. Okay? Material loss is a big deal. Okay? Material loss is a big deal. How much material loss do we have at our factory?
Probably a little bit.
And if you can carry it out in your pockets, you can have it. Alright? And you ain't carrying those big bricks out in your pockets. You know what I mean? So material loss is another big deal. What's another advantage to having it built in the factory besides time frame and affordability?
Keeping out of the elements.
It's out of the elements. It's not getting rained on, snowed on. They're building houses across the street from us right now. It's taken them about, 7 or 8 months. All this rain that we had, they weren't dried in. It was all over the lumber. It was all over the material sitting in the yard. I mean, it was a mess. A mess. That's acceptable in the site-built community. We don't have that issue at all in the manufactured home community. There are many reasons why the manufactured home or modular home is a viable option for homes. And it's not just about, when you say affordability, a lot of times attached to that is the connotation that it's cheaper. But that's not it at all. It's not cheaper. It's the same lumber, and we buy it all in bulk. So when we're ordering, okay? When we're ordering our lumber, we're not ordering drop ship for one house at a time. We're ordering a train load, literally, at a time. When we're ordering our sheetrock, you're getting the benefit of the fact that we're not ordering it for one house at a time. We're ordering it for 25 houses at a time. You know what I mean? Copper, laminate floor, everything that we order in bulk. And so would you think we get a better deal at bulk or not a better deal at bulk?
Of course, better deal.
Okay. I mean, you physically, literally cannot go down to Home Depot and buy the materials to make the 4512 with and build it yourself for what I can sell it to you for. It's impossible. You cannot do it. So, why manufactured home or modular home? That is something that you have to be prepared and proficient at answering before you can ever get to the second question. Marshall, what's the second one? You said a second ago. Okay. Listen, you've established in my mind that a manufacturer of modular home is a perfectly acceptable investment for my hard-earned money for a dwelling place or a roof, shade and shelter, whatever you want to call it, for my family. I get that part now. But of all the manufactured and modular homes out there, why Oak Creek?
So your warranty was reactive.
Why Oak Creek is huge, because if the answer is a manufactured or modular home, I'm still a shopper. And I need somebody to help me navigate my way through the selections that are available to me. Why not Palm Harbor?
Oak Creek paid attention to the little things, the details.
You don't think Palm Harbor does?
Well, like we were talking about Saturday, the difference in the 2x3s, the wrapping to make it 2x4, or the actual 2x4s. You know, the half-inch by 3/8 inch sheetrock, blah, 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 just go on and on and on.
I'm going to tell you that at the top of the food chain, which is where Oak Creek is at, and the other ones that are at the top of the food chain, there are marginal differences. When we're talking about the high-end discriminant buyer, we're not talking about the low-end trailer buyer. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a big part of our business, and we need to be able to cater to those. But we can sell those a little easier. I think you'll agree that that's a little easier sell. What we're talking about is the guy who makes $150,000 a year, drove up in his, Infiniti or whatever, and has, plenty of money to put down, and has a big ranch, and he could build out there if he wants to, but he was going to check this out first. That guy. The ones that we all want, the ones we make the most money on, to be honest with you. These guys. Why Oak Creek? This is big. 7-year home guard protection plan. What are some other, what they call USPs, unique selling propositions? What are some other USPs for Oak Creek?
The floor plans.
Okay, you can only get our floor plans from us?
That and,
What about the energy thing?
What about the energy efficiency?
well, I was saying there's so many different floor plans and options that are specific to Oak Creek.
I will tell you this. At some of the other places that I've worked at, for example, Palm, customization is not nearly as realistic as it is here at Oak Creek. Oak Creek here wants to build the house. So if you come in and you change it completely, they'll do it. Now, that's not how we normally want to do it, because there's so much opportunity for mistakes there. It's what they call a snowflake. And I'm not suggesting that we build a bunch of snowflakes, a bunch of one-time homes. But I am suggesting to you that if we have a discriminant buyer who's willing to pay for it, and we take the time and get it right, we will do just about anything they ask us to. Literally. That's a big deal. For the kind of money we're talking about, that's huge. You don't normally get that level of specifications available to you, or that level of options or customizations available to you, unless you're into that second and third tier of custom homes. You don't get that much fingerprint on your own home. You get what's available, and you pick from that, and that's what you take. So that is a big deal, customization. Okay. Some of the things that Oak Creek does differently, for example, in our high-end Fort Worth factory, behind the sheetrock, they sheathe the entire house in a luan or a panel. Does anybody else do that? They do not. Why is that important?
It's either structurally or insulation.
It's 100% structural. First of all, it adds structural integrity. If you've got two studs and you put a piece of wood on it first, and then you put sheetrock on it, and you put tape and texture over the top of it, and then you take two studs and you just put sheetrock over it, and you put tape and texture over the top of it, which one do you think is going to have more structural integrity? Which one, as the ground shifts underneath your house, which surely it will, do you think is going to last without cracking better? Why do you think we do that? Let me think. We're married to you for 7 years. The last thing we want to do is put something up there and out there that's going to be a problem for us for the next 7 years. You know what I mean? So understand your unique selling propositions for Oak Creek and be able to effectively and masterfully convey those to your consumer. Okay? Because the answer can't be manufactured home. It has to be an Oak Creek manufactured home or an Oak Creek modular home. You see that part? What's the third thing? If I'm going to buy an Oak Creek, and Marshall, you're right on the right path. If I'm going to buy an Oak Creek, how many stores do you have in the company? 25, 28, something like that, right? Why would I go to Sanger? What is it about Sanger?
Customer service.
What is it about Sanger that's different than Mesquite?
More land probably around.
What is it about Sanger that's different than Tyler?
I hope it's the people. I hope it's the people we have in here who interface with the customers.
Listen, you get a really good high-end buyer and you don't sell him on the first time, in which many cases you will not, in many cases you will. But we're talking about the ones that you don't. They get out there, they get on the computer, they start searching Oak Creek, they start going through inventory, they see photos over in Burleson. Guess what? Next thing you know, they're down in Burleson. Okay, that's a very real fact of life. A good, solid buyer with good credit that can buy anywhere at any time they want to. You need to have some answers for why Oak Creek Sanger. What are some of the reasons? One of the reasons is we're one of the highest volume stores in the company. If we're doing more volume, don't you think we've got more experience? Don't you think we're doing something more consistently? And let me ask you something. Would you rather buy from somebody who's delivered 5 homes this year or somebody who's delivered 50 homes this year? Why?
They know how to do it.
Right? I've been tying my own shoes for 43 years, and I'm pretty dang good at it. My daughter's been tying hers for 10 years. I think I'm a whole lot better than she is at it. Doesn't mean that she's a bad person. I love her with all my heart. But she's nowhere near as good because she doesn't have the experience. She doesn't have the exposure to doing it that I've had. It's physically impossible for her to have gained the experience that we've gained. Does that make sense? And we can extrapolate that into delivering homes. Who do you think has come up against more problems and overcome it? The 50 person, right? So, and I mean, we've more than doubled anybody in our region in deliveries except for Tyler. Okay? We've got a thorough grasp with our contractors. We've aligned ourselves so deeply with Eagle and with Kirby that we can get anything out of them at any time. We've got a great deal of exposure because we use them so much. We're their #1 customer. Okay? Them some big boys. We've got a seasoned sales staff. And we've got good people here that care about people. I think you'll agree that there's nobody here that it's not a pleasure to be around. Well, maybe one. That's not a pleasure to be around, that doesn't have the customer's best interest at heart and wouldn't go to war for them. Everybody here truly cares. We have a great staff that is competent and eager to assist a customer on any level at any time. Can that be said about everybody everywhere? It cannot. I think that Oak Creek in general has a pretty good pretty good staff at the retail level particularly that's eager to help the customers. And it's not to say that it's not everywhere else also, but we're talking about retail right now. But Sanger, I think, particularly has some continuity. Why Sanger? Okay? Marcia, you had answer number 4 here a minute ago.
Okay, now
Why me? Listen, when I walked in this place this morning, I walked in and I was able to look through this window and I saw a guy in there with about 2 trees worth of plaques on his wall. Why am I going to walk past that office to another one? I mean, I don't want to make it over dramatic or anything, but you need to let these people know that they are in good hands. You're a family person. Your hobbies, your similarities, your commonalities, you need to connect with them. You need to develop a relationship with them. Without that, they've got no obligation to you. So you cannot develop that by standing in the lobby, greeting them, and walking out the back door to a house. It doesn't happen. You're still a salesperson to them. They need to know where you've been. They need to know that you care, because until they know that you care, they don't care what you know, right? You have to spend time. That's why we do the interview, for 2 reasons. 1 is to develop a relationship, personal relationship, and 2 is to gain information on how to best solve the problem that they have. Whatever motivator brought them here today, we need information on it so we can help provide the best solution for it. Why me? Now, I've got my own answers for why me, and they're all different for each one of us. But if you don't answer for them why me, they'll find an Oak Creek from somebody else. See, if their problem is that they need a house, and you've got to solve that problem, they need to know, first of all, that your house is a viable option, but particularly not just your type of house, but your particular house. They need to know that they get it handled here competently. They need to know they got somebody with them step by step to walk them through every deal that's going to be compassionate, understanding, and professional with their transaction. Above all, they need to know that you're honest and that you have integrity. You know what I mean? If they know those things about you, it doesn't matter if you know how many mechanical fasteners are built, the house is built with. It doesn't, 36. It doesn't matter if you mess up, because they'll know that it was just a mistake, and people are okay with mistakes. They're not okay with misleading and misguiding and trickery and all that kind of stuff. They're okay with you making a mistake, and they'll allow you the opportunity to make mistakes if you're invested in them. Remember I said the other day when you came back and said they won't give you the credit, I said, because you haven't earned it yet. You can't be in an office 5 minutes with somebody and say the word credit to them. All that says to them is, I'm a paycheck to you. I mean nothing. But when you talk to them and you invest some time in them like you did that first customer, then they understand that they mean something to you. That customer's going to love you forever, whether they can buy or not. Okay? Did you have something important?
Yeah, what model number is that house in Iowa Park?
The 9059, third one on the left. Okay, so once we've got these top 4 questions answered, and you notice this has nothing to do with qualification. This has nothing to do with anything else. This has to do with relationship and making sure that you got a right to earn their business. Okay? Once we get the first 4 answered, then we can drill down a little bit more. Marshall, what would be the 5th one? Or anybody, what would be the fifth why?
Buy this house.
Bingo. Once I was satisfied in their mind that they're going to buy a manufactured or modular home from Oak Creek and Sanger, from Ryan, Marcia, Karen, Chris, whoever the individual is, then we need to get down to why this house. Well, you had to have listened to what they said. You got to know how many bedrooms, how many baths, how big, where at, all that kind of stuff. But in many cases, it's also about what can they afford, what's their budget suit. Now, if you don't cover that question with them, if you don't cover it with them, and they're looking for a high-end triple wide deal, but you walk straight out the back door and you show them the 2301, there's going to be cases where you're never going to get a chance to show them what you got. They're going to turn around and bolt out the door. It's really important to do a thorough interview We talk about solution-oriented selling. That's where you agree with the customer what the problem is, why they're here. Okay? And then you repeat it back to them and they agree to it, and then you provide a solution that's unique to your product and service. You can only do that when you have a thorough understanding of exactly what their problem is. Why this house will encompass how many bedrooms, how many baths, how does it satisfy their problem? And in some cases, budget's a restriction. Everybody wants the triple wide, but not everybody can afford it. They're going to, some cases, have to take a single wide because they don't have any options. And you have to make it blatantly obvious to them why that's logical for them, why that makes sense to them. This is where your real selling the house comes in. You really have to help them understand why that's the solution to their issue. It can't be that you're going to buy the triple wide, because you can't buy the triple wide. Yet you still need a house. You're going to continue to rent, right? That's 100% interest. You're never going to get ahead. It may be that right now you have to get started on the path for investment so that you can gain some equity in something that you could trade or sell later or trade in later, that you can afford to step up to the next level. And that may not be the triple wide that time either. It may be something else. But I'm going to put you on the path to success because I do care about you and your family. I don't want to see you stuck in this dead-end cycle. You know, and things aren't going to go down. I mean, prices aren't going to go down. The time is now. You see what I'm saying? All right, so why this house? What's the next thing you need to justify? Well, look at you, you're on fire. We had a situation the other day where a salesperson had gone out and shown the 18 wide. That was the game plan. Guy wanted to spend $10,000 on a house. We wanted to show him what $19,000 looked like on a house. Try to get him into reality. We're going to gain one victory at a time, right? And then bring him back in. When he gets back in, he says, they're coming for the TO. I wind up going in there, and he says, well, how much for the red house? Well, the red house wasn't on our game plan, so first of all, I did not see that coming. All right? How much for the red house? I did the same thing I asked you guys. I turned to the computer, said, let me pull it up for you. I'm not just going to spit it out there at him, right? That's not how we present price, right? How do we present price?
Inspection, model value guide.
Model value guide without fail, right? We pull that model value guide out into a professional price presentation. So as I turn to it and start to pull it up on the computer in the salesperson's office, he says, well, I've already been told it's $42,000. How much will you take for it? I said, well, the price is $42,000. Now I'm at a loss, right? I'm already behind the eight ball so far. He's got me on my heels. Because we haven't followed our game plan, we haven't followed our path. But anyway, the bottom line was, he said to me, I saw the same size house in Red Oak at a Clayton dealership, $29,000. One thing I was able to say to him is, we don't sell Clayton. Okay? What was the real issue there?
He had already been given a price. We weren't able to lay before him why this price for this home.
I'll tell you what the major issue with this is. In an effort to fly by the seat of your pants, the salesperson ran into a house that wasn't in the game plan, walked him through it, walked him back out into that office and asked me to come in there and close the deal. First problem was you didn't know we had been to a Clayton dealership. Have you seen any other homes? Have you been anywhere else? Very simple no. You got to know what you're up against. So we didn't even know we were up against a $29,000 new Clayton. Had we known that, maybe it would have changed it. But even if we didn't, which we didn't, if you go into a house and you're going to try to sell that person a house, you have to build the value. See, the question should never be, oh my gosh, how much? How come it's so expensive? or dang, that's too much money for that house. It should, if you've done a good feature benefit and you've given them $1 million presentation on the value of that house, it should always be, wow, I was expecting more. If you spend time in the house that you're trying to sell them, that they have an interest in, or it's the only one they can buy, and you build value in it, when you come back in, price should not be an issue. There is no way that he saw a comparable product for $29,000 delivered, set and tie with air conditioner that's brand new. It's impossible. But because we didn't help him understand that before we presented a price to him, we lost the guy. Never to be seen again. And you've got a problem with your income, right? You see what I'm saying? These things are not to be taken lightly. These are infinitely important. If you'll spend time building value, not only in Oak Creek, but in this particular house that you're asking them to invest in, then price should be justified. Really, we can X this out and put what? Because price is never an issue. Guy comes in with $35,000. Says, show me your $35,000 double wide. And you show him a $50,000 double wide, but he understands the value there. What happens all of a sudden? He's got $50,000. Price is just a number. What we want to know is, what's the value? What am I getting for that? I'm just like any other consumer. I don't mind spending more money. I don't mind a higher price tag as long as I can justify the value. You know what I mean? You go and you spend $400 on a pair of shoes, and other people spend $30 on a pair of shoes, and they say, well, I can't understand that. It's because you understand the value there, and they don't. It's not that it's a bad deal or a bad investment. Is it, Marcia? $400 shoes, hey. But seriously, I mean, if you're going to spend a lot of money on something or a high price, you need to understand the correlation between that and the value. And if you don't see the value in the product, you can't justify the price ever. Better be worth it. In many cases, what they want to know is, how does that equate to a payment? Because we can talk about $100,000 all day long. But if it's going to be $500 to a month to me, that's a different story than if it's going to be $1,500 a month to me. So I need to understand that correlation as well, right? And then last but not least, or kind of last but not least, is the one thing that we run into the most with buyers. The single biggest problem we have here in Sanger, Texas, that's nice, that's good, is why our homes are not delivered and set up already. And some of our buyers already have land, but there's a very significant portion that does not have land. We got to justify for them why they're going to take delivery of this home where we are able to put it at, not just where they want to be at. They all want to be on 35 with easy access to Fort Worth or Denton, but we don't have property there. So we've got to have some solutions for them. We've got to have some answers for them. It may be that a park is the answer. Do you have a solution, or do you have a reason why a park is the answer? It may be that the only property that's available is over here in this junky area of Valley View. Do you have a reason why that's going to work for them?
It depends on what they can afford.
A lot of it depends on what they can afford. A lot of it depends on availability. It's simply not available. If you're not willing to drive to Ponder or to Rome or to Aubrey or to wherever, then you might be out of luck. I mean, you're going to have to help justify that. Okay, so you're going to spend an extra 30 minutes in the car a day. And that's going to cost you an extra, what, $5 a day probably for gas, right? Because 2 gallons, let's say $7 a day. So that's $200 more a month in gas. Okay, so let me help you understand why that's a good investment now. to get something that you're comfortable with, even though it's a little more time and a little more money, let me show you how you're going to save that much money or more. Let me talk to you about your pride, about your, you got to find a way to help them understand that we can't make more land. They're not ever going to build a hood over this and put a bunch of more dirt up there for people to take advantage of. It's not going to happen. They don't make any more of it. What's available is available, and it's your job and your responsibility, if you're going to make more sales than the next person, to know where that land's at, to know the benefits of that land, and have a pitch that's going to work to help somebody understand the benefits of it. Okay? And then last but not least, Ryan, why now? We've put some thought into that. We've got these signs on the front of the door. First visit bonus. All that is designed to do is create a buying environment. The why now thing applies to everything that we're doing. Phone. Okay, you put your ads out. Why do I call them out? Remember, we need a hook. When they call on the phone, we have our telemarketing. We need to know why come in today. When they get here and we've shown them a house, why invest now? In many cases, we're trying to get them to close faster than they want to close. Why do I close faster? You know what I'm saying? Everything is why now. Don't forget your urgency. All right, any questions or comments? See the value here? See the flow?
So if we can answer all 8 of these questions for customers and build that value, why Singer, why me, why this house was the price for this location, is there any reason we can't at least like every person that comes to this deal?
Nope.
So this is really a formula, an 8-step question formula. If we can accurately do this, answer these questions for every customer, why we can't totally do that.
Watch this. There's absolutely no reason. You've got let's say 40 opportunities a month each. If we got our phone ups in, we got everything on. You've got 40 opportunities. Of those 40, mathematics say that 20 of them are going to be good, high-end, qualified buyers. As soon as I say that, the air goes out of the room. Everybody's like, that's not how it works at my place. It is how it works at your place. It absolutely is. The problem is we don't have a plan of attack for that customer. We're so focused on these people that have lower credit, no money, maybe unemployed, that kind of stuff. And our game plan is always built around we take the money from them. If we put our game plan on this, which is what we just talked about, on these people can go away. We can blow through those people faster. We're talking about the high-end quality buyer. If you take some time and there's no way to know who's who going in. That's not going to happen. You're not going to see them pull up in the car and have the answer, or see them get out and see what they're dressed in and have the answer. Sometimes that works, but if you're doing that, you're shooting yourself in the foot, I promise you. Okay? Absolutely, without a doubt. So, huh?
The Beards is good.
Beards is a good example. If you saw the Beards walk in, what would you think?
They smell bad, I want them to wait.
Okay?
They're not going to buy anything.
It's cute, man.
Great credit. Just took delivery of a house.
Yes.
You got your customers from this weekend?
No, I have not.
Rodriguez?
I'm telling you yet, I am still working on that.
Okay.
They look like tire kickers.
You look at tire kickers. Guess what? I got $10,000 cash. You see what I'm saying?
Never guess.
So what I'm saying is,
Well, honestly, I don't know about him because, like I said, I don't run his.
this
schedule.
is our
His business, that would be something that you negotiate.
this is our bread and butter right here. This is where we're going to make the most consistent money. If we get a game plan for them, and that's the game plan we just talked about. And I would rather cater to that game plan, hoping to get more of these people, than I would cater to this game plan and get less of these people.
Exactly. That would be my.
Does that make sense?
That would be something I would.
So the answer to your question is the only reason you're not closing, and I'm not saying that you, I'm saying, when somebody doesn't close a well-qualified buyer, the only reason is they have a question in their mind instead of an answer along that pathway somewhere.
It's something we haven't properly addressed for them.
Period. But it's maybe that we properly addressed it and their answer is no. It may be that we explain to them the value of manufactured or modular home and they say, that's not good enough. It may be that we said Oak Creek was the answer and they said,
Yes.
not for me. The answer is gonna be no sometimes, but more often than not, and I'm talking about by a wide margin, if you answer solidly in somebody's mind all of the questions that we just posed, you're going to have more consistent sales with more high-end buyers. That's an easier path to get done. The loan goes through faster, there's not as many
Yeah.
conditions, the home get, you know what I'm saying? It's all a much better flow.
And,
Make sense? Any
yes,
questions?
we will, and I
Any
have got you on
comments?
the list to get the factory.
All right, we're going to have
But
our,
I got called into a meeting and so.
deal review, okay?
I did want to talk to you about Bandit sign.